Netanyahu, who obviously came knowing why he's coming, he's going to be properly prepared when, not if, when there'll be that pressure, when there'll be that arm twisting. And really, for Netanyahu to succeed, he needs to know that to keep Israel safe, to keep Israel secure, while managing Israel's relationship with America, he needs to be a proud Jew. He needs to come to Washington. Now he's in Washington as a proud Jew, not just representing Israel, representing Jews, representing Torah, representing the future of the Jewish people. Well, this happens to be a very special night. This is the birthday and the day of redemption of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, who we refer to as the Rebbe Rayatz, the father-in-law of the current Lubavitcher Rebbe. So that means there's a lot of great energy. We're not going to spend time talking about the Rebbe Rayatz. We're going to talk tonight about Bibi and Trump. But we know we've got special energy. The Rebbe Rayatz went through many incarcerations under the Soviets. And his final and most horrific one, this was in 1927, where he was in Shpalerka, and every second was death and death and death and death and death in the most horrific ways. And when he was freed, he said, it's not just a personal thing. It's not only that he personally was freed. This is a freedom for the Jewish people. This is a freedom for every person, even a person who doesn't even know what it means to be Jewish, who just sort of knows he's called Jew, which in Russia was not such a complimentary term. But for such a Jew as well, for every single Jew in the world, this was redemption. So I definitely hope and pray and believe that whatever we say tonight should be so much more powerful, because we have all of this like real redemption energies. So what are we doing? We're in the middle of a series on modesty. We had a beautiful class last week. It was very inspiring for me. Everyone shared so honestly and authentically. And now suddenly, like, I forgot about it. I did not forget about it. We have 2 more classes, but this is a very timely thing. Tonight, as we talk, we know Bibi Netanyahu is meeting with Trump in Washington. Of course, everything is like so nice. And we already officially, Bibi said he wants to recommend Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. That's all the surface. We really know what's going to happen. Trump didn't have Netanyahu fly to Washington to get some flattery out of him. He could get that overseas. We understand, we all know what's really going on. And what's really going on is a lot of enormous pressure that's being exerted and will be exerted over these next several days on Netanyahu from Trump and his entourage in terms of what's going on in Gaza. So I want to review a number of points clarified by the Lubavitcher Rebbe in terms of these situations. Now, you could say, I mean, we're not the prime minister. I don't think any of us are Bibi's confidant. Like, I don't have his ear, and I don't think anyone else here does either. But as we've discussed several times since October 7th, our firm resolve, our vocalizing these points empowers them with our strength, our belief, our power will help Netanyahu's resolve in this very, very critical juncture. So we'll discuss, we'll share, hopefully, and we should accomplish spiritually. And as I said, it's a very spiritually potent time. The Rebbe Yatz's birthday energy. On your birthday, your mazel. It's not like we would say mazel tov, it's an expression. No, it's a true spiritual energy. So his mazel is very, very strong. And it's a day of redemption. So it's very strong redemption energies. So it's a great time to make spiritual things happen. So the first point I wanted to raise is when we realize what's going on, when we understand that Israel, us, the Jewish people, is having pressure from America, you know, a lot of times we panic, and a lot of times we personalize it. And a lot of times, you know, we feel like, oh my gosh, this is unbearable. And Trump's going to push so hard. Trump, I mean, he's anyway, you know, a real pushing type of person. And Israel is officially indebted to America. Though really, America should be indebted to Israel for destroying what it did in Iran. But all right. And of course, the big question is the prime minister going to stand up to the pressure, or is he going to cave? So the first thing we really have to know is understand what to expect. Like, we know what's going to happen. Lubavitcher Rebbe says very clearly, the job of the president of America is to protect America. The job of the president of America is not to protect Israel. I mean, we're allies. Obviously, it's beneficial for them to protect us, but only as far as it's beneficial for them. So if everything works according to nature, there is going to be massive, massive pressure on Netanyahu, because obviously as president of America, He wants to get rid of this problem as soon as possible. Something else to get his Nobel Peace Prize. It doesn't make Trump a betrayer of Israel. It doesn't make Trump an anti-Semite. He's looking after his interests, as he understands it, the interests of America. For the interests of America, we want to end the war in Gaza as quickly as possible. We want regional calm. We want to stabilize the oil prices. We want what some Americans view as the shooting of innocent Gazans, aka Hamas. So when we understand that, it helps us not panic. When it happens, it's happening. We know it's happening. Netanyahu, who obviously came knowing why he's coming, he's going to be properly prepared when, not if, when there'll be that pressure, when there'll be that arm twisting. And really, for Netanyahu to succeed, he needs to know that to keep Israel safe, to keep Israel secure, while managing Israel's relationship with America, he needs to be a proud Jew. He needs to come to Washington. Now he's in Washington as a proud Jew, not just representing Israel, representing Jews, representing Torah, representing the future of the Jewish people. And when you look at yourself in a certain way, you act differently. If Netanyahu is looking at himself as the representation of the Jewish people, as the representation of the future of the Jewish people, he will say different things. He will agree to different things. He will make different choices. He will have a different level of strength. Has this happened to anyone here? Were you ever in a situation where you weren't just yourself? You were representing God. You were representing the Jewish people. You knew where you were. People weren't looking at you as you. They were looking at you as a Jew. And you knew what you did, you were doing as a Jew. I definitely have those times when I really are like, it's not me. I have to act better than me because they're looking at me and thinking Jew, or they're looking at me and thinking religious Jew, Chabad, Lubavitch. And as such, I behave differently because I know I have to live up to what I'm representing. It's a very common experience for a Jewish person to know that when someone's looking at them, they're not seeing them. They're seeing Jew. Now, sometimes seeing Jew is a very positive thing, and the other person is treating us more nicely because they see Jew. And sometimes, of course, they look at us more critically because they see Jew. I remember now, I'm thinking not how I behave, but how someone treated me. I know I've shared this, but it was made a very powerful impression on me, and I will say the story very quickly. But this was a number of years ago, and it was the Sabbath, Friday night, and I was in a hospital with my son Beryl. It's happened a number of times, and we were able to leave, and no taxi was coming. I'm waiting. It's so late. And now something that never happened. The nurse on duty, I'm skipping all the window dressing, but just give the punchline of the story. The nurse on duty said, I see your address, all my information was right there. You live very close to here, which I did. It was like a 6-minute drive. He said, would you mind, or would you want me to drive you home? I'm like, you would drive me home? He said, yeah, I could get a break from my, the supervisor. A 15-minute break. It's just enough time to get you in the car, get you home, and get you back, and me come back. I'm like, sure. I figured he's got to be safe. It's a nurse on duty. And he did it. And he took me home. And I'm like thinking in the car, this is insane. A nurse doesn't drive you home. This is insane. And I'm thinking, why is he doing this? And what's the hand of providence? And I'm trying to tell him all about the laws of Noachides and da-da-da-da-da. We get to my house. And I say, because of the Sabbath, I say, could you open the door for me? Sure. Could you carry my son in and my bag in? Sure. So he comes into my house, and my husband is waiting for me, sleeping on the chair in the living room. When we walk in, I just wanted my husband to properly say thank you to this person. Obviously, he's assuming he's a taxi driver. So I said to my husband, this man, he's a nurse, and he came with me from the hospital to help because no taxi was coming, and he saw how late it was. He brought me home. And the man said, when I came to this country, there was a Jew that was very, very kind to me. And then he left. Like, he had to run back to get back within the 15-minute window of his break. And it was such a sense of like, wow, he didn't see me. He doesn't know me. He saw Jew. And because there was a Jew who was very kind to him, when he saw me, he wanted to be kind to me in a very extraordinary way. And that's the receiving end. And there's also, of course, other levels how this happens. But I'm sure we all have had these experiences where wanting or unwanting, willing or unwilling, we represent you. So hopefully, and again, as we're saying this, it's really to create an energy, create a spirit that Netanyahu is Washington, knowing who he represents. Second point, how is he going to be so strong when there's so much pressure that's going to be put on him? And if you look back historically, in all the relationships Israel has had with America through all the years of the history, prime minister after prime minister in Israel has crumbled under American pressure. And it's not only, well, those are prime ministers that, like, I'll call it on the left, the doves. Yeah, it's sort of the way they're going. No, actually, the greatest concessions Israel has ever given, meaning the greatest tragedies Israel has ever done, every prime minister was what we call a hawk. A hawk meaning right, conservative, military. The greatest, most tragic concessions that we're still suffering from today, every prime minister was a right-wing military man, hawk, who, for whatever reason, gave in. Menachem Begin, who gave away the Sinai, gave away strategic oil wells, gave away that land. Land is protection. He gave it away for a piece of paper, for nothing. Menachem Begin, if you know the history, he was such a fighter. He was a fighter before Israel was established as a state. He was an extremist. He gave it away for a piece of paper. And then Shamir was also a real fighter, general, a hero. And Shamir is the one that put Israel on the road to Oslo. What happened in the Oslo talks? That's when we recognize the PLO, Palestinian Liberation Organization, the terror organization that had been trying to destroy Israel from its inception until then. We officially recognize them. I mean, we changed their name. Instead of the PLO, now they're being called the PA, and we allowed them to have self-governance. We gave them parts of the West Bank. We gave them Gaza. The IDF withdrew from parts of Gaza, from Jericho, from the West Bank, and we've had terror in those areas ever since. And then we have Sharon, Arik Sharon. Arik Sharon was such a military hero, such a strong fighter. Arik Sharon gave them Gaza. Gaza was our land. We gave it away. So here are these strong military men, hawks, who spent their lives on the conservative right wing, who value the security of Israel, who understood the security of Israel from a military perspective, the real one, not a political perspective. And whatever happened, happened. I don't know what you want to call it. Pressure is too great, whatever you want to say. Obviously, it's very easy for us sitting here comfortably. Nobody's putting the pressure on us. We can be those, couch politicians, so to speak. But how do you do it if you're in the hot seat? The only way is by remaining anchored in Torah, anchored in your responsibility to the Jewish people, knowing who you represent, knowing what you represent, then you're immovable. And then all the other parties have to be flexible around you. You're not budging because you have God's strength, because you're superhuman, because it's not you. If you think it's you, forget it. It's not gonna happen. If you know it's not you and you know it's God, then you're strong enough. And without that grounding and strength of Torah, even the strongest leader is going to falter when the stakes are so high. So I thought this situation also is something we could relate to, because obviously on a very different level, I would think it's an experience we might have had as well, where we've been under enormous pressure to do not what God would want us to do. Such an enormous pressure that it was really hard to do the right thing. And sometimes we were able to pull on Torah, on God, and be stronger than we think we're capable of. And we're stronger, even though the pressure is so much, but we can withstand that pressure because we're pulling on something bigger than ourselves. Anyone had this type of experience where they were under a lot of pressure and they pulled on their relationship to God, on their belief in God, on the reality of God, And with that awareness, they overcame the situation.
I can give an example. I don't know if it's perfect example, but somewhat. I eat only kosher food. And sometimes in a situation, there's no kosher food around. And it could be difficult, but knowing that that's what Hashem wants from me, I am able, like, not to cross the line. Don't know, but somehow it's like, that's it. This is not going to happen.
It's not negotiable.
It's not negotiable.
Right. Yeah, no, that's what we're talking about. Things being not negotiable, even though they're difficult, because it's just not an option. If it's just not an option, it's just not an option. And we don't think about it. Like Chava's thinking, I remember very clearly a friend of mine, this was many years ago, I think I've shared this, how it was Yom Kippur. And I was very expecting. It was probably my son Naftali, who was born about a week or so later. And I was sitting on my porch, and it was Yom Kippur, and my neighbor passed by, and she said, like, "You're not fasting, are you?" And I'm like, "Of course I'm fasting. It's Yom Kippur." And she said, "Oh, yeah, I tried, but, like, I couldn't." And it's just like, "How can you fast?" And I was like, sort of like Chava's saying, I was like, "Well, like, I don't think I have a choice. Like, I don't even consider having a choice. It's just a non-issue. It's non-negotiable, so to speak. So I'm fasting it. Yeah, whatever." It's not bothering me because I'm not even thinking about it as an option. It's Yom Kippur, you fast. So definitely when we have whatever those lines are that we create for ourselves, that this is our commitment to God, is our commitment to his law, then whatever the situation is, this is our commitment and we're not moving. Okay, so we said, first of all, let's accept the situation and understand the situation. That already lessens our panic. Second point, go in because you know you represent God, which again, coming from the war and coming from how God's name was so on Netanyahu's lips, it's hopeful that he is thinking that. It was amazing to me in all his years, and he's been prime minister for a long time. I have never heard him, or for that matter, any Israeli prime minister, speak about God as openly, as proudly, as freely as Netanyahu was speaking over the war, and how he said that the strongest siyah in the Knesset is siyata deshmaya, is the help of God. From the beginning to the end, and all the times he spoke, he keeps mentioning God. So I hope you have the strength to know it's also true now. It's not you personally. It's not your political career. It's not your political future. It's not even Israel's current political gains. You represent God. That was the second point. The third point, what does the Torah say one should do in Gaza now? Like, what is the Torah's perspective? Well, according to the Torah, as Lubavitch Rebbe says many, many, many times, the only way to achieve security, the only way to achieve real enduring peace is to control the territory. It's the only answer. If you relinquish control, you create vulnerability that will be exploited. Whenever Israel gave up control, even partially, the result was never peace. The result was death. And of course, people say, well, because you didn't give up enough. Look at Gaza. We gave them beautiful land. We gave them beautiful beaches. When we gave them Gaza, when Sharon gave them Gaza, kicking out the Jews that had built it up and made it so beautiful, exiling them, stripping them from their homes, and till today, many of them are just traumatized and have no real life. Literally pushing out Jews that built up the land with their hands. People are saying, wow, this is going to be the Singapore of the Middle East. This is so beautiful with the beaches, with all the beauty that the Jews with their hard work and labor had created. Singapore of the Middle East. No, it just became Hamas. Not that we didn't give enough. We gave. Well, we didn't give enough because there's still 10 million Jews living in Israel. So as long as there's any Jew living in Israel, I guess we didn't give enough. But everything we gave didn't create peace. It created death. It created a springboard for them to have an easier way to shoot missiles at us. This is a fundamental principle throughout the ages. From King David's time, in the time of the Talmud, when they were not in Israel. This is nothing to do with the holiness of Israel. This is to do with security for the Jewish people. They're under the Persian rule. Same rules applied. This was codified in the Shulchan Aruch, in the Code of Jewish Law, under the laws of the Sabbath. Interesting. This is in the Laws of the Sabbath, chapter 329. This law, the Lubavitch Rebbe will quote again and again and again. And I know after October 7th, we discussed this law very extensively. This is in the 6th section. What is the law? If the nations are besieging you on Shabbos, on the Sabbath, are you allowed to defend yourself? Well, it's a Sabbath. Are you allowed to violate and desecrate the Sabbath to protect yourselves? Depends. It depends why they're coming. If they're coming for money, no. You're not allowed to violate the Sabbath for money. They're going to come. They're going to steal. They're going to rob. Nothing you can do. It's the Sabbath. Let them take what they want, and that's it. But if they're coming for lives, if they're coming to kill you, or if you don't know, but there's a suspicion they're coming for lives, desecrate the Sabbath to protect yourselves, even before they get there. As we've discussed previously, we believe in a preemptive strike, right? 6-day war, preemptive strike. The 12-day war, preemptive strike. We know the value of a preemptive strike. The Shulchan Aruch, the sages, knew the value of a preemptive strike. They say if you know they're coming, and if you know they're coming for your lives, or even maybe they're coming for your lives, don't wait till they come. Don't say, well, maybe we should wait till the Sabbath is over, till they get here. No! On the Sabbath, go out and desecrate that Sabbath and have a preemptive strike and save your lives. So it's a very clear law. If they're coming for money, let them take it all. Don't do anything. Don't violate the Sabbath. If they're coming for lives, or the suspicion perhaps of lives, do everything you must, preemptively strike. Don't worry about the Sabbath. God wants you to live. But there's a third clause. What if you're a border city? If you're a border city, again, we're not talking about border cities in Israel. This was discussed in the time of Talmud, and the sages of the Talmud were not living in Israel. If you're in the border, even if they're only coming for straw, meaning they're not coming for your lives, they're not even coming for big money, they're coming for small change. Straw. What's the value of straw? Take my straw. No. If you're a border city and they're coming for straw, desecrate the Sabbath to protect the city. Because maybe once they already come in to get that straw, they're going to conquer the city. And once they conquer the city, they'll be able to take the whole land. Now, again, this law has nothing to do with the sanctity of Israel, because this was actually talked about in Babylonia. This was talking about the city of Naharda in Babylonia. It was not talking about Israel. It was not about the holiness of Israel. It was talking about protecting Jewish lives. So again, if they're coming for money, it's the Sabbath. Let them take. If they're coming for lives, go and fight preemptively. If they're coming for small change on the Sabbath and you're a border city, go and fight. Because if they get the border city, they're going to get the whole country. This was always Lubavitch Rebbe's point. We must destroy the enemy. Because the whole Israel is so tiny, is so narrow. Everywhere you turn, it's a border city. Once they get a foothold, like we gifted them with Gaza. Well, were they satisfied with Gaza? Of course not. They're not happy with what they got. No, now we have an opportunity to shoot missiles and try to destroy and conquer the entire Israel. And drive, as I call it, 10 million people into the sea. That's what we want. Then we will be satisfied. Two-state solution? We don't want a two-state solution. We want a one-state solution. Hamas, the entire state. Or Hezbollah, the entire state. Or Palestine, the entire state. We're flexible. A one-state solution, that's what we want. Then we'll be satisfied. So even the smallest infringement on terrain results in massive security vulnerabilities. Again, not only in Israel, anywhere. Giving away control of territory could seem like a small-term gain. Like, yeah, what's a small-term gain? Well, that elusive gain we always want and never get anyway, as we've discussed. Then the world will like us, right? We want the world to like us. Remember, we discussed the Yom Kippur War of 1973? We had the beauty of the preemptive strike and the miracles of the 6-day war. That was in 67. 6 years later, in 73, we completely blew it. Why? Because we clung to this hope that then the world will like us. If we strike preemptively, we're the aggressors, never mind Egypt and Syria, and they're all very clearly being the aggressors. But no, we would be the aggressors. We don't want to be the aggressors. So we're going to let them slaughter us. And after a few thousand of us are slaughtered, then the world will like us because we're just defending ourselves. Well, guess what? Thousands of Jews lost their lives, and I don't think the world especially likes us anymore because of it. I think the ones that hate us are very glad that thousands of Jews lost their lives, and the one that liked us before and feel bad that thousands of Jews lost their lives. So this elusive hope of giving into the world and wanting the world to like you and wanting you to be accepted and acceptable, it's never going to work anyway. Those that hate God, those that hate the Jewish people will hate us. They might respect us. They might fear us, but they're going to hate us. And those that love God and therefore loves the Jewish people are going to love us. So this is the solution as Torah sees it. The solution for Gaza is for Israel to control Gaza. Like honestly, the solution for Hezbollah is for Israel to control southern Lebanon. Those are the only solutions that actually work. Any concession just gives the enemy, and they're real enemies. We're not using those words lightly. Those real enemies that really want and rejoice and dance on Jewish blood. It just gives the enemy a chance to return with a vengeance. That's the bottom line. We have to control the terrain. And if your adversary controls the terrain, they're going to use it to harm us more and more. And if they control the terrain, Israel is more and more vulnerable to their attacks. So that's it. This is a perspective we have to have. We have to understand what's happening. Netanyahu has to understand who he's representing, what his power is. It's God's power. And Netanyahu has to understand the only solution for peace is when we control. We can come briefly to, well, the fourth point, what people are talking about. What about self-governance, autonomy? People say, do we really want the IDF ruling millions of Arabs? Like, I mean, we need that job. We need that headache. That's so dangerous. That's so, we don't want to be doing that forever. Maybe people think this is like a smart compromise. We're going to lessen the Israeli presence. We're going to mitigate the threat of terrorism. We're going to give them government. They'll be busy governing themselves. They won't be terrorists anymore. Lubavitcher Rebbe says the Torah warns. No kind-hearted, soft Western world compromises. No bridges to peace. It's called a springboard to terror. Whatever you want to call it, different fancy terms are used. Self-determination, putting moderates in control to create peace. Whatever you call it, it's relinquishing control. And unfortunately, you don't have to be a believer. You don't have to be a believer in Torah, God forbid. You don't have to be a believer in Lubavitcher Rebbe. All we have to do is look at Israeli history, because they've tried it many times. And every single time, there was always the exact same result. So again, I know this not because I'm so smart and so wise and so knowledgeable at all. And definitely Netanyahu knows this. It's the reality of life in Israel. You look at Shechem, look at Hebron, look at Ramlah, look at cities, look at areas where we gave them self-governance and autonomy, even just civil governance. As the Rebbe says, look who they elect as their officials when they're given the power. I think the most obvious situation we can look at is Gaza, right? So first, Sharon gives them Gaza. But of course, we're not giving it to them that some terrorist should take over. No, it's going to be a democracy, and there's going to be elections. Well, guess what? There was exactly one election in Gaza because the people elected Hamas. That's the sad truth that people don't talk about. Hamas didn't brutally take over, actually. I mean, ironically enough, in the beginning, they were actually elected. I mean, of course, once they were elected, they managed to destroy, remove, eliminate any potential opponents. But they were actually elected. Hamas is who the Arabs elected to rule them. And then we say, well, we're giving them civil autonomy, like just to run the civil infrastructure. Like that was even what Israel was thinking before October 7th. Oh yeah, Hamas is getting, civilized because they have to deal with water and power and electricity and mail and, running a government, running a country. Like they're going to be busy with civil stuff, right? They're not going to do other things. Practically speaking, bottom line, you relinquish control. And then they come and you make this agreement with them and you work out every detail of the agreement so it should be safe, but they don't abide by the agreements. And they say they want to modify the agreement. So we had an agreement in the past and we said, okay, for 5 years, it's going to be like this. Well, guess what? 5 minutes later, they came and said, all right, we're done with that. Well, what do you mean you're done with that? We agreed to 5 years. No, we're done with that. Forget this 5-year business. We're already at stage 2, so to speak. We're agreeing. We think we're agreeing Moderate Arabs. There are moderate Arabs out there. Yes, there are. There are. 100% there are. There are definitely moderate Arabs, and they'll be in control. Well, no. In all of these areas, in the West Bank, in Gaza, what happened to all the moderate Arabs? The people sent them away. The people didn't elect them. The people didn't empower them. And then what happens? Then the self-governance in the West Bank, basically the PA, says, oh, we don't want the IDF in this area. We don't need the IDF in this area. What do we need you for? We have our own police. So we're giving the PA meaning the Palestinian Liberation Organization, PA meaning a terrorist organization, PA meaning an organization that until today, and the PA is considered a very moderate terrorist organization, until today, the PA pays a salary for every terrorist. They're very generous. Doesn't have to be their own terrorist. Any terrorist, it could be Hamas, it could be Hezbollah. Any terrorist that's sitting in an Israeli prison gets a monthly stipend from the PA. That's what our friend PA, former terrorist, no longer terrorist organization is doing with their money that they get from the UN and such organizations. So we give them land, we give them authority, we give them autonomy. We in the end give them weapons that they use against us. The Lubavitcher Rebbe says, it's like you took away the carpet from your own feet. And it takes about 5 minutes for them to realize the power that you gave them, the power that they can take. And you lost it. You lost your ability to control this area. And again, nobody has to be a prophet here. Nobody has to be a believer here. When the Rebbe said it, he's saying as a prophet. He's saying as a believer. But we can just look back historically. We all have 20/20 hindsight vision. It's exactly what happens. Every area in the West Bank, in Gaza, all over Israel, anywhere we have given them power, they have used it to harm us. They have used it to breed terrorism. They have used it to send out groups and individuals and stronger organizations. Every place has terrorists. Just depends on which terrorist organization is ruling which corner of the West Bank and of Gaza. So what's our choice? Our choice is to stay strong, to stay unpopular, to stay not liked by the world who doesn't want to hear this, the world who just wants us to be quiet and, roll over and be dead, to stay strong and not give them any power. The more we give them, the more literal danger. We're not talking about figurative danger. We're talking about very, very literal danger to the lives of the Jews. Then they come with a new demand. Then they come with another demand until their ultimate demand. All of us to just go into the sea. All 10 million. Then they got what they wanted. And the problem is that Israel looks at what it says like what we mean by self-governance. Some measure of civil administration, but that's not what the Arabs mean. They mean sovereignty, they mean weapons, they mean war, they mean conquest. And this disconnect that we still fool ourselves that they mean what we mean and they're going to behave like we're going to behave, it creates very, very, very tangible danger. And, it's a very, very normal, very natural. We all want to be liked, right? Israel wants to be liked. Israel has those illusions, those futile fantasies of being liked by the world. But we also sometimes just want to be liked. And sometimes we want to compromise for peace, our version of peace, for people to like us, for people to be happy with us, for people to think we're good. And I'm sure we've had situations where we've given in and done what we know was not smart, but for the sake of peace, for the sake of compromise, and it totally backfired. And it's like the more we give in, the more we are taken advantage of. What else? Foreign troops, right? I mean, in other words, just if you are following the news, or not that you should be following the news, but following from very carefully vetted sources, what's on the table, right? So we have how we're going to quickly end this war, giving, God forbid, some measure, small measure of autonomy. And then, perfect solution. Every time it's offered, it's always presented like it's an original thought. It's been tried and failed many times. Foreign troops, meaning Honestly, Jews, the Arabs don't like you. So when you're trying to police these millions of Arabs, your very presence gets them annoyed, gets them mad. They just remember that they want to drive you into the sea. So we have this brilliant, beautiful solution. We, because we love you so much, because we so want world peace, we're going to generously provide our troops to police these dangerous areas. So you're safe, your soldiers aren't endangered, the Arabs aren't annoyed by us, and everybody will live happily ever after. You know, it sounds really, really nice. A coalition of professional armies, not of people that don't like us. Some of the armies on the table now are armies that don't like us. But in the past, literally, nations not hostile to Israel that are willing to come in and maintain control and keep the peace. And in reality, it has never worked. And every time it's presented, Lubavitch Rebbe would always say the same thing. You're giving away control of the land. Like, bottom line, if you think it's too dangerous for your soldiers, for Israeli soldiers, for the IDF to protect the land for the Jews, are you expecting America to do that for you? Do you really think they want to endanger their own soldiers? Like, no, of course they don't. Who cares what they're saying? We know the reality. Every country, obviously, no, nothing against them, it's just the truth, is going to have their own best interests in mind. Best interest means what's good for us. And no country wants to endanger their troops for someone else. So this idea of international troops safeguarding Israel is not an original idea. There were many such attempts, and they all failed. Very famously, in 1978, we discussed, after October 7th, we discussed the war in Lebanon to uproot the terrorism then. And Israel had very clear military objectives, and they achieved all their military objectives. It's called Operation Litani. That's the river, sort of the dividing line. South of that river is where all the terrorists are trying to destroy us. And we really pushed them back and uprooted them. It was a tremendous, as Entebbe, as the Iran war, like all these things are like not natural, right? We know that. We almost like rely on it. Definitely we trust in it. I mean, what happened right now in 12 days? We achieved in 12 days what doesn't make any sense. Like, you know, people say this joke. They don't mean it as to be funny. But, oh, now Israel has reinvented modern warfare. And now all the armies of the world are going to study what happened. That's like sort of funny. Because if any army tried, they'd fall on their face. And Russia, who surely has far more at their disposal than Israel does, Russia's been trying for 3 years with Ukraine, and they didn't accomplish what Israel accomplished in 12 days. Like, you know, it doesn't work if someone else tries it. It just doesn't work. We discussed the Iron Dome. Protects Israel, 95% effective. Exact same Iron Dome in Ukraine, 50% effective. Same Iron Dome. In Israel, it's 95%. In Ukraine, it's 50%. I think we've touched on Entebbe, right? In 1976, Israel, with about 3 days to plan it, flew from Israel to Uganda to rescue 103 hostages that are surrounded by the Ugandan army and terrorists. And we got them out and back home 4 years later, only 4 years later, 1976. In 1980, America has a similar situation. They have 66 diplomats that were taken hostage in Iran. They have months to plan this. They moved very slow, very cautiously. For months, they planned this operation, patterned somewhat after Entebbe, the success of 4 years before, that Israel pulled off in 3 days. And they sent a number of helicopters on a rescue mission, and the helicopters never even made it to the place. And unfortunately, 8 servicemen perished in the attempt. So Entebbe, yeah, it works for us. It didn't work for America. Iran, it works for Israel. It's not working for Russia and the Ukraine. The Iron Dome, it's working for Israel. It's not working the same in Ukraine. So when we have these wars, we see that God gives supernatural victory. He keeps giving that supernatural victory. He does. But then what do we do with it afterwards? So here, going back to 1978, this was in Lebanon. This was uprooting the PLO. That was the goal then. That was trying to destroy us. They were striking us in Israel. They're actually striking at us internationally, all over the world. They were targeting Jews, and they were based there in southern Lebanon. And it was a tremendous military operation that achieved all its goals. And after we succeed, what does the world say? Oh. we want to take care of you. Don't. We're going to send in troops because, IDF in Lebanon, it's going to make them upset. We're going to take over. We're going to do it for you. And who are these countries? Countries that were friendly to us. It was Canada, Sweden, France, nations that were friendly to us. They're sending their soldiers, and we're going back home. It sounds beautiful. The Rebbe said in 1978, when this was first proposed, forget it. This is false comfort. This is not going to work. And unfortunately, it took a very short time. It took a few weeks. And what happened? Lebanon is supposed to be under what was called the Swords of Peace, the UN and their armies, their soldiers from all over the world. And the terrorists started coming out when the IDF left. Suddenly all the terrorists emerged. And where they emerged was where there were French army. And when the French soldiers see the terrorists, the French soldiers retreated. They didn't want to be put in danger from the terrorists. They went back to their places. And they said, this is what they said. Imagine the insanity. When the terrorists agree that we can be deployed again, we will come out. Like, we're not risking our lives. If the terrorists agree that we can hang out in Lebanon, we'll be here. And if the terrorists don't agree, well, we're not going to be on the field. And thus was formed Hezbollah, right? We uprooted the PLO and we got Hezbollah in southern Lebanon instead. And as we saw, we don't have to go all the way back to 78. All the fighting that's happened in southern Lebanon, well, officially, there were UN troops all over southern Lebanon to protect us, to make sure there's no terrorists. So what happened to them? Well, basically one of two things. Either they just did nothing and they let the terrorists do whatever they were doing because they don't want to risk their lives. Or, even worse, we saw many, many times it's come out since October 7th that the UN peacekeeping forces were proactively helping the terrorists to achieve the terrorist goals. This idea of foreign troops that are going to take care of it for us, unfortunately, again, we don't have to be believers in Torah and we don't have to be believers in the Rebbe. We just have to know a little bit of history and know that the only way to security is when we control our own destiny and we don't rely on others. Everything I've told you, Netanyahu knows. Netanyahu knows he's going, and it's going to be enormous pressure. The whole world knows it. He also knows it. I don't know. I hope Netanyahu knows that the only way to stay strong is if he's going as a representative of God and the Jewish people. Netanyahu knows that the only way to have peace is with strength, is with ruling, is with controlling. Netanyahu knows that every autonomy we've ever given has created more security dangers for us. And Netanyahu knows what foreign troops do and don't do. Either aid and abet the enemy or just let them be. So it's been almost 2 years of war. Soldiers have sacrificed their lives. Reservists, I have relatives in the reserve, I have relatives as soldiers and relatives in the reserve, and their lives have also been upside down for the past 2 years. And there's still hostages. Hopefully at least 20 living hostages. I can't fathom what that means to be hostages for so long. And unfortunately, because of all this, some people just want this to be over. It sounds easier. It sounds better. If we give up control, it won't lead to peace. It will lead to repeat. And we need to have the strength to withstand the pressures, to do what is very clearly unpopular in the world's eyes, unpopular in America's eyes. The only path for our safety, for our security, the only path is strength. And strength is only going to be achieved when it's rooted in God. Only when it's rooted in Torah's timeless guidance, when it's rooted in preserving Jewish lives at all costs, and that's what's most important. Only then does it work. So why are we saying all this? Are any of us going to go now and make a phone call with someone in Washington? We're saying this because our very awareness of this, our very belief in this, our very conviction in this strengthens and strengthens and strengthens these powers. And we got to give it everything we can. Just give more charity, say more psalms, As I said, tonight and tomorrow, and actually the day after as well, is super powerful spiritual days. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe's birthday, his days of redemption, amazing days, amazing energy at our fingertips. So it's really a very powerful time, and we're really very powerful people. And this is a very significant moment in history.